going today? Fabulous. So again, really excited to have everyone here. It is now noon, so I'm going to go ahead and start the kind of introduction slides here. And my name is Dana McGrath. I am an employer relations partner with the SNHU Career Services team. I am joined in the chat by quite a few colleagues, but wanted to call one out specifically, Alyssa Leskowski, who is a career engagement partner on the career team and is a wonderful co-planner, along with Linnea Wright, who is one of the deans here with SNHU, and we're all very excited to have coordinated this series of 7 different sessions, including today's panel. So really hoping that you were able to register for at least one, if you're here today, but feel free to jump into the other exciting game sessions that we have where people will be exposed to the basics of coding this week. So this is our, of course, kickoff panel. And for the first slide, the AI statement, we do have this for security and legal reasons. Please note that participants' use of any AI tool during this event, including Read AI or Otter AI, is prohibited. I am going to go ahead. Oh, someone did start the recording, so thank you so much for doing that. So you will notice that we are recording the event. The recording will be available on the SNHU Career YouTube page within 48 hours or so after the conclusion of this event, so you can go back and rewatch. But of course, we are also dedicated to inclusive media experiences. If you'd like to enable live captions, select the 3 dots at the top of the Microsoft Teams window. You'll expand the More menu. You can choose language and speech. And then from that drop-down menu, you can click Show Live Captions. The captions will show on your screen as the presenters are speaking during the session. We're also presenting right now using PowerPoint Live. So this means that any hyperlinks that you see in the presentation, those are actually live and clickable. So feel free to click and open those up in a different window if you'd like. PowerPoint Live also provides additional accessibility options. So again, if you select the 3 dots, but at the bottom of the presentation slides, you'll see options including a magnify slide option that has a minus and a plus sign to zoom in or out. There's a toggle button to view slides in high contrast, or you can also have the option to translate the slide text to a preferred language. These features will only affect your individual experience, so not the overall presentation, so please feel welcome to use those available accessibility options at your discretion. And individuals who may require accessibility accommodations can reach out to the following resources at SNHU. Any online students can contact the SNHU Online Accessibility Center at oac@snhu.edu or call 866-305-9430. Campus students can contact the Campus Accessibility Center at cac@snhu.edu or call 603-644-3118. And any SNHU staff and faculty can request accommodations through resources in Workday or the source. And please note that any requests for CART or live ASL interpreting, those do require at least 3 weeks of advance notice. And our shameless plug, of course, we want you to make sure, if you haven't already, to connect with the SNHU Career Services team. We have coce@snhu.edu if you'd like to contact the team, or by phone at 888-672-1458. There's also the wonderful 24/7 online Career Services Center at Career 360. That's linked there. And then, of course, take advantage of all the different networks that the SNHU community resides in, including Handshake, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, and the internal SNHU Connect platform with different clubs and ways to connect with your fellow students. So for our agenda today, of course, we have our welcome. We'll go through a couple of FAQ things about Hour of Code and the session schedule of the upcoming week. We'll have our panelist introductions. We'll have a few moderated questions from our wonderful panel moderator, who we'll introduce in just a second. And then there will be time for student Q&A or attendee Q&A. So feel free, as you're going throughout the session, if you have a question that pops up, throw that in the chat and we'll be sure to address as many as we can at the conclusion. And just to give some context of what is Hour of Code. So we actually just learned recently they're actually going to be transitioning to Hour of AI in the future, just with the constant changes of technology. But it's a week-long global event. It started as a 1-hour introduction to computer science, demystifying code, right? Where it's this technical skill, what does it include? So really showing that anyone can learn the basics, and we want to broaden participation in the field of computer science. It's such a great, valuable skill in the current career landscape. So we have wonderful, after this kickoff today, we have wonderful sessions planned throughout the week through Friday. And again, it's just to have fun, enjoy learning together. The first gaming session is today at 3 p.m. And we have additional sessions again throughout the week. So you can register for those on the registration page if you haven't already. And those are also clickable links if you want to sign up for any additional for the schedule. And without further ado, I do want to introduce Dr. Gary Savard, who is our Senior Associate Dean on the STEM Academic team. So Gary, if you want to say hello and maybe say a little bit about yourself as well. Oh, Gary, I think you might be double muted.
I am double, triple muted. I'm Gary Savard. I'm the one of the two senior associate deans. I'm over computer science, IT, AI, and the game programs. And I will be asking some questions, hard questions of our panelists today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Savard. Excited to have you moderating today. And we're going to go ahead and say hello to our panelists as well. So first we have Brett Cohen. So Brett is an information technology supervisor too with the California Department of Healthcare Services. But Brett, if you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Hi there. So I started working for the state about 4.5 years ago after working in the private sector for about 30 some odd years. These days, I manage a service desk team of currently 18 staff, and DHCS provides a vital piece of healthcare services to residents of the state of California. But I've been working in mostly on the support side. I used to manage projects, but these days, all hands-on support and making sure everybody's systems are functioning properly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Brett. Appreciate the introduction there. And we'll go ahead and move forward to our next slide. I don't know if I have Jurgen here just yet, so we might skip over that and hopefully he can join us after we do the introductions. But we'll go ahead and go to Rihanna Skeen, who is a software engineer analyst with JPMorgan Chase. So Rihanna, if you want to come off of mute and say hello, tell us a little about yourself as well.
Hi, everyone. So as you can see, I've been working as a software engineer at JPMorgan Chase for about 2 years. I initially did not start with a computer science background. I actually graduated with my degree in biomedical science and then transitioned into software engineering. I went through a program called Tech Connect, which the company sponsors. So it takes you through a 3-month boot camp and then transitions you into a software engineering role. And today I work full-time as a full stack developer, utilizing both Java Spring Boot and React to do front-end design. And yeah, that's a bit about me.
Wonderful. Great to hear that. Thank you for joining us as well and sharing a bit about yourself. And these will be our kind of preset questions for the panel today. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to our wonderful panel moderator, Gary Savard. And Gary, feel free to jump right in.
Okay, so I am going to go in order that people are showing up on the little boxes. So Brett gets to be the first person to answer a question. So the first question, our code's all about showing that anyone can learn the code. From your experience, what makes coding accessible to people from all backgrounds and skill levels?
Coding, a long time ago, coding, you had to dig deep into books and figure out the black box. But coding's available everywhere. As long as you have a device, a laptop or a phone or anything, you can tinker, because a lot of the technology, the programming tools are out there, easily accessible. And it's, even people in, around the world in impoverished areas, it's, as long as you have an internet connection, you have those resources to learn how to code. Because there's a lot of free stuff as well. I was just reading an article about how Linus, who took the core of Unix to make it available for everybody to learn how to code. And this is going back 20, 30 years ago.
Hey, thank you. Rihanna, do you want to add anything to that before we move to the next question? Because I'm going to pick on you next.
Sure thing. And echoing of what Brad said about accessibility, something that I realized it wasn't necessarily all about being naturally technical. It's about learning how to break those problems into smaller steps. When you kind of see coding as a creative and also forgiving aspect, it's something that you find that you can experiment wrong and not recommendation goes away. I think that's what makes it accessible for people to be able to move forward and learn more about it.
Okay, thank you, Rihanna. And actually, that's kind of jumping right into our second question. So for students who feel intimidated by coding or fear they're not technical enough, what first steps or beginner-friendly tools would you recommend to help them build confidence?
So if you're someone who feels intimidated by coding, I would encourage you to start with tools that make it feel more playful and less stressful. Would start with the fundamentals and using beginner-friendly tutorials and services that allow you to utilize small logic and syntax and to be able to problem solve and practice that in a different development area using like either VS Code or IntelliJ. So once you see yourself being able to build something, no matter how small it may be or how simple, that win will help to boost your confidence and encourage you to keep going on.
And that does sound a lot like what we're going to do with our code, because we're going to do some low threat, a whole lot of fun type of coding over the next few days. So that's a great introduction to what we're going to be doing. Brett, do you have a follow-up or would you like the next question?
Yeah, well, I think things to add to that is because of the growing worldwide online community, what you work on, it's not just you. There's so many resources that you can turn to, online clubs, Reddit, YouTube videos, like, I have a problem, how do I fix this? Or just leveraging the AI tools that everybody has available. Um, I was talking with the gentleman who oversees our AI development and that does the development in the sandbox, that it's very easy to take code, throw it into an AI tool, and have it help you understand and fix what isn't working, so that while you're leveraging AI to fix something, you're also learning. And also just put it out there and pose those questions like, hey, how do I do this? Or I'm running into this error. So you're not in a silo. You've got millions of people that are available to assist. And applaud your efforts.
All right, thank you. And so Brett, you get the next question. Can you share an example of a time when learning even a small amount of code had a big impact, either for you personally or for someone on your team?
So one of the companies I worked for, we used to have to run these reports to generate who left the company. We had to check to make sure the accounts are disabled. I had a company of 5,000 employees, and we fell far behind on disabling accounts. And I had somebody teach me how to use PowerShell. That very simple. You run the script. Here's all the accounts that are in a certain state. And while I'm not a programmer, it used these basic tools to generate the reports that I needed that I can then pass over to somebody else to actually take that action. So little things that basically, I've never done this before. How do I do it? Here's the command line. Here's the syntax. This is what you need to do. And it's, it makes you feel good that you were able to generate something and get the results that you were looking for, and to go to somebody then say, hey, can you check this? So it's those little things. These little short scripts, I have staff that are more proficient in PowerShell, so they use it in a lot of ways to better how they perform their job. So those little things are a good step in the right direction.
Thank you. Rihanna, do you have a follow-up?
I can add on. My experience was more so on the personal side. So, as I led with, I got my degree in biomedical science. And so, a couple months before I applied for being a software engineer, I actually learned the basics of Python. So, it wasn't anything advanced, but it really made a huge difference for me. So, when I went on to taking the hacker rank part of my interview, I suddenly had a language that I was comfortable in. So, because you get to choose whichever language you can code in. So that really helped me to be able to express my logic clearly and walk through and also showcase my problem solving skills, even if it's not just arriving at the right answer. So that small amount of code really boosted my confidence and showed me that it's really powerful no matter what level you're learning at and how applicable it can be to helping you further yourself.
Okay, thank you, Rihanna. And here's our next question. What skills, technical or soft, do you feel are most important for students just starting out to explore careers in computer science? How can they begin strengthening those now?
Mm. I think one of the most important skills for those who are early in their career is really just curiosity and the ability to break problems into smaller steps, taking something that may seem big and intimidating and knowing how to chip away at it. And I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be how advanced you are in a certain area, just being willing to learn new skills as well as learn new technologies, because whether they're ever present or something new and emerging, just taking the time to be able to learn those skills and a lot of the soft skills that people already have, like communication, teamwork, staying organized from being in school, clubs, organizations, part time jobs, so many of these translate well already, even if they may seem unrelated. So you can strengthen this by either exploring small projects that you want to take on and treating them as like new challenges as a way to learn and practice something new.
All right, thank you. Brett.
I would add that programming is hard and it could be frustrating. And the important thing is, if something's not working right, to not get frustrated. Step back, take a closer look. I do a lot of work with Excel. I sort of use it in a programming sense in a lot of ways. So sometimes it doesn't work the way you want it to. So you step back, look at it, see, study the logic, and the same thing applies for programming. For soft skills, it's important that I like to look at silos. If you have others to work with, and again, if you're doing something personal, it's again, you have all these resources that are out there, but to emphasize communications, problem solving, critical thinking, um, you know, again, break it down into small pieces. You don't need to, when you have your starting point and you have your end point, you don't just automatically go from start to end in a flash. Incremental steps, you know, create a piece, make sure it works, then go to the next step, incremental steps.
Hey, thank you. I come from the business world, and I'm just going to add a little bit to that just very briefly. And one is to be an effective communicator, to be a good team player, because we do most of our development in teams.
Mm-hmm.
And like you both said, to be curious and don't get frustrated. This is a complete problem-solving type of field. And if you don't like solving problems, it's probably not your field. All right, so I think we go back. Let's see. That you were a follow-up, so I think Brett gets the next one. Many students are curious about career paths in coding beyond traditional software engineering. What alternatives or emerging tech roles should students know about, and what draws employers to those skills?
There's so many different areas. It's not just straight out programming. Data analytics. I love to dig into data to try to understand the data that's presented. There's a whole area of people, and there's folks I used to work with that I used to work for a business consulting firm, and we had a group of people that did studied the data that was presented to determine damages. It's a whole area of digging into the data, understanding what's presented to get to a value for lawsuits. So the science using, say, Python, SQL, R, all those, like was it R, the free data analytics piece of software that I know people used to use it because SAS was just so expensive. So you're able to dig in deep to understand what's being presented. Folks that do on the cybersecurity side, they look at the data, they look at things that are happening to try to understand. So it's not straight out coding, but it's understanding what's being presented to you to understand what might actually be happening in the background. I'm trying to think what else. A lot of people are using AI to program. You take a snippet of code or a concept, it helps you create that code. While I don't like to lean 100% on AI, it helps you formulate ideas in a process to go from one point to the next point.
Brianna, any follow-up?
Brett said, like, there's so many families of traditional software engineering. He mentioned analytics. There's also product management, UI, UX, cybersecurity, which I see a lot of people are also majoring in as well. There's AI, ML, prompt engineering is also a big thing. It's very crucial as well to be able to get the output that you want, and even like technical project coordination. And to the other part of the question, in regards to what employers kind of look for, I think just a mix of like technical curiosity and the ability to understand people and the problems so that you can provide those solutions. So you don't always need to be a developer, but I think employers would really value those who can think logically, communicate effectively and clearly, and also pick up new tools quickly as well. When you go into an industry, you may not know everything of that they're using. So being able to pick up those technologies and really work with that and the people that you're going to be working with as well is really important. So I think those strengths can help you fit into many different technical roles, not just limited to software engineering.
All right, thank you, Rihanna. And this is our last question, and it goes to you. If a student has no experience yet in coding or computer science, what practical steps can they take over the next 30 to 60 days to start building a foundation portfolio or hands-on experience?
In terms of those who have no experience yet, I would think that the next 30 to 60 days give you an opportune time to start experimenting. So I'd suggest learning a beginner-friendly language. For me, Python was that at the time. So you can start with short online courses or just utilize beginner-friendly platforms that help you learn the foundations and syntax. And to be able to build off of what you learn, I really think practical application is also key. So you can start with maybe 2 or 3 small projects. They don't have to be anything too complicated. They could be a single web page, which teaches you back end and front end, um, a simple game, or just a data script, just something that allows you to have that practical application. And you can treat it like a capstone project. You don't need to be perfect, but I just think that having that like fingers to keypad type of connection to really put things that you've learned to use, and you can see how you build and how you iterate, and you can also learn things about yourself as you code as well. I know Brett mentioned don't get frustrated, keep persevering. So definitely that I think would be key. And I think not only familiarizing yourself with the coding language, but also the different things that come around coding, like the coding environments and different repository systems. And you can also store your projects in these systems so that you can have something to reference, and you can just look back at yourself a couple days, months from now, and just see what you started to what you're developing now. So I think it's all about small, consistent steps that really add up. And then you can have something real and tangible that you can talk about as you keep progressing.
Thank you, Rihanna. And Brett, do you have a follow-up to our final question?
Yeah. So I know of some folks who had gone through some boot camps, immersive week-long coding camps. Those are helps get you immersed into it. You live and breathe coding. Other things that I'm familiar with, people forget that LinkedIn, the platform, they have a great learning platform that covers multitudes of training and guidelines and helps you get immersed in it. And then good old YouTube. I mean, it's amazing how much content is out there. It's the basics, getting started with simple things. How do you do something? How, you can go set up a little sandbox, a little virtual environment so that you can go ahead and tinker and learn. If it doesn't work right, start new. And you keep on building and you learn from what's not working and you keep on. So one of the things I always like to say is you add tools to the toolbox. So if you learn something new, it's now something that you're going to possibly use in the future. And it helps build those future skills. But, Python is one of those that a lot of people, leverage. I have a friend of mine that after he and his wife had a software development business that they used to do development for Lotus Notes and Domino going back years ago. He stopped, he closed that business. And for the last dozen years, he's been teaching web development and Python up in Vancouver, Washington at the local college. And people that didn't have the basic skills are coming out with advanced degrees, all because, just that little curiosity and like, how do I do this? You get immersed in it. And it's I think also it helps to find somebody who has that programming background, that experience that you can mentor with, that you can bounce ideas off and they can work with you to build those skills.
All right. Thank you, Brett. We are at the end of our questions. So I will move this back to Dana.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Savard and Rihanna and Brett. That was just a great kind of kickoff conversation with the moderated questions. So thank you all so much. Virtual round of applause from me and anyone else that wants to plug that. So we do have a few questions that have come in the chat, and then we have questions that came in from when students were registering for the event. So we have a great amount of time to address those questions if you're game. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the first question that we had come through. So, is coding for a math class a completely separate sort of coding? For example, discrete mathematics. So, if you can think about, your experience learning, did you have some coding that you applied in certain classes that had to do with math?
Back when I took math, it was just straight math. But I remember when I originally went down that path many years ago, thinking I was going to be a programmer. But back then, taking, various levels of linear algebra and calculus and things like that, trying to translate that into programming. And of course, when I first went to school, we programmed in Pascal, Fortran, PL1, Assembler, COBOL, RPG, and all of those things. But it's today, yes, there is definitely a crossover, because there's those tools that are available that didn't exist back then. And again, leveraging the technologies and the stuff, what's out there now, definitely streamlines and makes it easier. I mean, I don't think we're necessarily asking, when I'm hiring people, I'm not asking them to solve a particular problem that's intense mathematics, but they're the people that I know that are coming out of college today, they're just their skill sets and their knowledge and their exposure is just by far much further ahead of what when I first came out of school.
Very cool. So just, keeping up, and it makes your work efficient more, right? Depending on some of those basic skills you can apply. And Rihanna, do you feel somewhat similar? Did you have some exposure in coding in math classes, or if you can share a little bit about that?
I did not, at least code for mathematics, that is. Most of my coding was either specifically structured towards learning a particular language just for the sake of learning it, not mostly for the application. But I do have the experience where I have friends who have done similar for like environmental science, geography, utilizing languages like Python, R for modeling, data analysis, like Brett mentioned. So they do definitely come in handy, and they do have their utilizations in their different fields, and it's very translatable as well, from either math to geography, environmental science, so on and so forth. But it's definitely one of those processes that makes your job a bit easier. So having that in your tool belt is going to be necessary for most of those fields.
Excellent. Great answers. Thank you both. And let's see here. So we had someone share that they were interested in learning how coding might be helpful for a management position at a nonprofit company. If either of you can kind of think about that translation.
Well, you have to digest data. You have to understand what's being presented to you. Whether you're actually programming or you're using Office, Excel, you could do you can create macros in Excel. You can do data analytics in Excel. And like I said, I spend a lot of time using Excel because I'm taking data from multiple sources and I'm trying to make sense of what's going on. And then I get asked for, can you do this report, or can you give me a breakdown of tickets that are come in over a period of time that are tied to a certain thing, so that I can very quickly present that data. So yeah, you can. It depends on what you're actually looking for. Simple. Are you, looking at if you have funds coming in and you're trying to see where it's going, and there are so many different ways that you can slice and dice it to make it simple.
Absolutely. Yeah, data is just the buzzword of the decade, I feel. I mean, it's always been, right? So
Yes.
I think being able to efficiently parse that and translate it, right? Not just being able to do the technical side, but being able to kind of talk about why that's a benefit for the business and assess that data. That's awesome.
I would add to it is it's like, in a way like project management. When somebody comes to you and asks for something, you have to ask the questions of what they're looking for. There is that graphic of somebody that wants a swing on a tree limb, and how that data is interpreted. And all they wanted is two pieces of rope hanging off a branch and a swing, and the way the drawing was depicted is the rope was on either side of the tree trunk. And so it's very important how that data is interpreted and to ask the right questions, because if you don't ask the right questions, and that's the important thing, that's something that you learn over time, that when somebody says, this is what I want, you have to make sure that you ask the right question, so this way that you understand what they're asking for and to make sure. So when somebody is giving you data, what you do with the data and how you interpret it is very important.
Absolutely. And Rihanna, do you have any kind of follow-up thoughts from what Brett shared as far as the, management position with a nonprofit?
Awesome job covering that. I was also going to use the analogy of from a project manager perspective. For those project managers that I've been in communication with, I find that the knowledge that they do have help with improving communication with the developers, and it helps assess better what you want and what we can deliver and how we can deliver it. So being able to kind of bridge that gap, and it also helps with having that informed technical decisions. So I think that's really useful. And especially just if you're going to be in anything that's tech related, just having that foundation, I think would be very important, even if you are in a managerial position and you're not necessarily the one who's coding.
For sure. Being able to speak the language and deliver. So love it.
Yes.
All right. And I have a question from a game art and development major. Um, and maybe this isn't, super in the purview, but as far as coding, can you speak to how difficult coding might be for the gaming industry for a game art and development major? How games function. Is it something that would be more difficult in gaming, or is it pretty standard across the board?
If they can't answer it, I can.
Yeah.
I've worked in that industry to some
Thanks, Gary.
extent.
Yeah, either.
Okay. Game coding, it depends on what you're coding, honestly. If it's low level, then it's very complicated, technical, and challenging. There are some high level types of coding that may be done in more high level languages like JavaScript or Python. So it depends on what you want to do. And if you're a game art person or game development and you want to learn the programming side or parts of it, that's a real advantage because everyone on the team needs to understand the basics of each other's vocabulary. So if you don't want to be a coder, but you want to understand some coding, that is something you can do on the job.
I had a friend of mine, somebody who I went to high school with, that reached out to me. This was a few years ago. His son graduated from school, and his intent was to get a job doing gaming development. And he did find, fresh out of school, it was a struggle because people want somebody who has the experience. Some of these companies, they don't really want to take the time to train somebody. And the thing that that I did with he reached out to me, and I reached out to some folks in my network to help him find a programming job. Get your foot in the door, work on your passion developing games, but get your foot in the door, get the exposure to what it's like to work in a development environment. And then from there, while you're getting those tools and that experience, go back to what your passion is. Because it's not going to happen, it may not happen right away. For some people it does. But don't forget about what you want, but gain those other skills and refine them so that when that opportunity arises, you're ready for it.
Absolutely.
I mean, something I'll add is that I've had people ask this question because I worked in the tech side for a very long time, and I made the transition to management about 10 or 12 years ago, and people ask me why. And it's because I like working with people. I want to help people realize what their skills, and I like mentoring people, getting people moved from one level up to the next for them to grow and learn. So while I don't do the development, I don't do the programming these days, my focus is to give people the skills and focus and to move into that direction that they're passionate about.
Love that. Yeah, really developing. And that actually is a great tie into this next question. From a perspective, either applying or as the management role, do hiring managers or recruiters looking at certifications along with degrees as practical applications?
It depends on how far along in their career. Working for the state, we have strict guidelines for hiring and recruiting. We look at the years of experience or how much experience they have. Are they basing their experience based on college? Are they basing experience on actual work experience? But I don't look so much at a certificate. It helps at some point, but it really comes down to is what experience do you bring to the table that you currently have? What is your degree in? What type of development did you do that you learn? In the private sector, it's a completely different process.
Yeah, Brianna, I know, if you want to speak a little bit about the Tech Connect program that you went through and, did certain certifications or, what were they looking for when you went through that program and applying?
So in my application process, the main purpose is to take those from non-technical background and train them to be technical. So they really just looked at your soft skills, your application, and you can reference your technical skills as well. I will say, similar to what Brett said, the certifications are nice to have, but the practical application is really what matters. So for me, I would have listed my technical skills that I do have, like I mentioned, having Python, Pascal. I would also put those projects or any work that I would have done utilizing that at the forefront of my resume to kind of show my application. So it's a nice to have, but if you have something substantial to put along with it, even better.
Absolutely. I love that highlight of the soft skills in addition to the technical skills. Perfect. All right, let's see here. So, where do you look to for answers when Stack Overflow or YouTube doesn't have the needed information? So I guess maybe some recommended resources that you use to problem solve.
I'll leave that to
Keyword.
Rihanna.
Okay, so we do utilize, so at least internally within JPMC, we have our own version of Stack Overflow, which helps because it's a bit more niche as to what we deal with within our own VDI systems. But if Stack Overflow or YouTube don't have the answer, honestly, I would reach out to a member of my team And usually they have more experience. I'm the youngest member of my team. So usually they have the seniority, so they're VPs and higher. So they would have the experience. So reach out to somebody who, if you have access to them, they can more than likely help you. Another website that I really like is Baldong for at least learning new fundamentals, as well as Geeks for Geeks is also a pretty cool website that I also like to utilize. They have various courses and you can learn different things on them as well. But honestly, problem solving and troubleshooting something that's very specific and particular. If you have the access to somebody, even better. Reddit, I know Reddit is also a pretty big one.
Mm-hmm.
9 out of 10, somebody has posted your issue, and a solution is listed right below. So honestly, just a quick Google search will likely pull up solutions that, because at least I found within the tech space, you're not the only one having the issue 9 out of 10 times. And likely somebody has reached out and asked online forums. And so resources are there and solutions that you can utilize and try are also there.
I dropped in the chat earlier, w3.org, which is a World Wide Web Consortium. It has a lot of standards for a lot of different programming languages, not just web stuff. So that's quite useful, as is are some of the new AIs that are integrated into, for example, Microsoft tools using Microsoft Copilot, which opens up another avenue of research. And there are things like Discord that are available too, and you'll find Discord channels that have a lot of answers.
And this is a question that sort of ties into that as well. If either of you are familiar with Home Lab, which looks like it's kind of a platform where people can share their labs, projects, builds. Are you familiar with Home Lab, or do you have other kind of maybe a consortium or platforms that you collaborate with others in your field?
I don't, but I know a lot of people, I'm familiar with a lot of people that leverage GitHub in a lot of different ways.
Same here. I'm not that familiar with Home Labs, but with GitHub, you can have access to public repositories, usually just highlighting how to go about solving a particular problem or just having those examples of work that people have already done. And you can also publicize yours as well for others to utilize as resources. But Home Labs, I don't believe I've ever used it.
Yeah, there's plenty out there, right? Lots of resources to dive into. I can only imagine just the tip of the iceberg. So here's another one that's sort of in line with resources. So are there any books or audiobooks, podcasts, or specific channels you'd recommend for learning more about coding?
I'm gonna echo Brett and say YouTube Academy is the place to be. Honestly, there's so many different channels. I think when I was initially learning and as I continue to learn, I utilize sites like Udemy. You can really learn anything. For YouTube, I think a specific channel that I used was Bro Code, I think was its name. But they offer full length courses. Some of them are jam packed and you can dedicate the time to them. Or if you want something more digestible, you can use those short form videos as well for like specific components and syntaxes that you want to learn. But there's just a plethora of resources out there that you can utilize. And I will say, what you choose should be catered to how you learn. Not everybody learns the same, and everybody, you can either be an audiophile, you can be somebody who needs actual examples, like you need someone to do the first set of something before you can have the application of it yourself. So pick a style of learning that best suits you.
Excellent, for sure. And I love that call out too, where it's, kind of understand your own learning style, because that's really important to not try to fit that square peg in a round hole, right? Perfect. All right, let's see. So a question, is it common for individuals to make a career change to coding related roles? Do you have any advice for late career changers who want to switch or transition from one career field to coding or data analytics?
There's nothing wrong with doing a career change. People do it all the time. You can get to a certain point where what you're doing you don't like. Sometimes it comes down to passion. What do you want to do? The obstacle, though, is to make a career change. Sometimes you have to go down to that entry level because you don't have all the experience to get to that next level. As somebody who hires people, I would get applications from people that worked for the California Department of Corrections, no IT experience, but they want to get into IT. And sometimes I just can't hire them because they don't have the experience. What I tell a lot of people that, if you don't have the experience, take the time to learn somehow, volunteer your time, get involved with organizations, community. So this way you gain those basic skills so that if you get to that point where you want to do that career change, you have something that you could show that you've done, that you've learned. I know when, again, hiring in the States a lot different than the private sector because there's a rigid guideline process that we have to follow. But I know I've hired people in the private sector that because there was a certain connection, they came across a certain way, they sounded like they were eager to learn. And I was very fortunate to hiring people like that. So no, there's nothing wrong with it. If you get to that point where you do want to make that career change, take some classes. See if that's exactly what you want to do. My first foray into programming, I was in my early 20s. I was taking all kinds of classes. A friend of mine worked for this company. He was leaving to go back to school. I gave it a try. I think I worked there for about 6 months, and I realized that was not for me. So sometimes, give it a try. See if that's exactly what you want. And if it is what you want, then pursue it and learn.
Perfect. Absolutely. And Rihanna, any insights on that career changing aspect as well?
So in terms of like the career change, I did mention I did biomedical science with the intent of becoming a medical practitioner. And it was in my last semester where I was like, I've always had a passion for software engineering, but I never got the chance to really pursue it. So took it upon myself to take a class, learn a new language at the time, and then the opportunity to apply for a role presented itself, and I went about the process, and everything kind of went linearly, and I ended up with a great company. And even if you're somebody who is further along in their career who wants to make that transition, I think Brett offers some really solid advice about getting that experience. It's okay to make the change, but getting that experience to really showcase and also to have that application for yourself to see if it's something that you really want to do more than just an idea, but an actual execution. Um, I think that's was some really solid advice for those who want to do it. Even volunteer work, having those different projects, different portfolios, something that you can showcase. And learning is you're forever learning no matter where you are, whether it's something that's in your current field or a different field altogether. But continuous learning and showcase that you can continuously learn so that even if you are in a different role, no matter what position that you're in, you're going to be able to learn and pick up those skills and be able to translate them into the work that needs to be done. But yeah, that's my 2 cents, I guess.
No, I appreciate that. Really, nothing is final. It's, always continue to keep your horizons open, developing those skills because you never know where that could take you. So I love that. And it's never a bad idea to try, right? Either with volunteering or
Always.
internships or things like that. Perfect. Let's see. With the way the world is heading with AI and all the advances in technology, do you feel that it would be useful for everyone to have at least some small bit of knowledge of coding?
Most definitely. And Brett, I
And,
think you're muted if you're speaking.
you know, AI makes it so much easier. We've been embarking on AI exploration for the last 6 months. We have full Copilot access. That's the only AI tool that we have, but we have full access to Copilot, and we have guardrails in place because of the type of data that we have. So we have to be very careful. But I had somebody was telling me how they were able to use AI to help them create code. You still need to verify. You need to make sure it's working. One thing I tell people, and I tell my staff, is here's all the AI classes I want you to take. We have an in-house training platform. I want you to learn it. And what you can do more than take these classes, because in 2-3 years, when I'm hiring people, they're going to have a full background on AI, and you're going to have to play catch up. And there's so much that can be done with it. And there's different AI platforms for different purposes. If you're just doing research, that's one thing. But if you're learning the code, there's other platforms. So it's important to learn and understand which AI platforms work better for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, kind of going back to that, efficiency point we made where, if people are doing the work more efficiently, how are you going to keep up with that? So just being familiar with it, right? So absolutely. And I know Rihanna, your reaction was absolutely yes. So I don't know if you had any other details or just like straight up absolutely yes. So
Everything. As a developer, we do utilize AI. It is integrated into our IDEs. JPMC even has its own LLM platform as well. So it's everywhere. It's in front of us, and there's such a huge initiative to utilize AI as well. And Brett made a great point that AI hallucinates. It will be right 90% of the time, and you may be tempted to just take it as solid truth and not check and not verify. We can't really do that. So having those developer skills, having that coding knowledge to be able to understand what it's giving you, it makes it faster, streamlines your processes, sure. But if you don't understand what it's giving you, you can't make sense of it. How will you integrate it with what you have as existing or what you're going to be building upon? So kind of adding that human aspect to it as well for you to also utilize the knowledge that you have, but also leverage AI for the possibilities that it can provide you as well.
absolutely. And Rihanna, while I have you kind of talking about JPMorgan Chase, there was a question that maybe you could speak to since it's a financial institution. How is coding, or how would coding be helpful for accountants or financial analysts? So just in that work, how is coding helpful in that field?
So honestly, coding can really be leveraged in a plethora of ways. I'm on the commercial banking side. I don't really deal with the financials, but how I would see it being applied is you can write JavaScripts to process large data, to process your Excel sheets, to produce Excel reports of different pieces of information that you want. So it really helps with the generation of like this information and data. And as mentioned, we're living in a world of data, and there's so much to consume. You're creating so much as well. So anything that can make it more manageable for you, um, just taking those few lines of code, processing it to generate something that you or somebody else can understand, will really make a difference in like the work that you do and how you go about it as well.
Perfect. And Brett, jumping over to you because in the kind of hiring manager seat, this specific question: would you say that the way things are progressing in tech, that HR operations will require basic coding now or in the future, just from your exposure from working in hiring?
Possibly. It's hard to say. Um, we're in an interesting area now because prior to this year, at least with the state of California, I mean, individual state agencies did some work with AI and other development, but there's been a big push for massive modernization across all departments in the state because we're running on legacy mainframe environments. A big chunk of them are legacy mainframe, and those mainframe developers, they're disappearing, so they need to modernize. So they have to move to different platforms, whether it's, the big platform that we're using in the state is Salesforce, but there's other platforms, there's other tools that are being used. It always helps to go ahead and, keep yourself abreast and in tune of what the what development tools are being used. So this way you don't fall far behind. Somebody who only programmed in COBOL and RPG years ago, they're still working, they're still doing it, but there's new, easier tools to develop in. So it's for those that are going to school that learned a particular programming language or applications 10 years ago, those may not be applicable today. But like if you look at NASA and JPL and the Voyager craft, they're running on this code that was developed 60 years ago. So there's people that have to learn to know how to do it, and there have to be certain transitions. But again, it goes back to if this is what you have a passion for, if this is what you want to do, keep pushing at it. There's always going to be a need. And back to Rihanna, data analytics is everywhere. People don't make loan decisions based on, oh, they seem like a nice person. There's a lot of math that goes on, a lot of programming that compares across a widespread piece of data to determine what happens.
Absolutely. And really just great conversation. I appreciate such great advice. Takeaways, lifelong learning, explore your passions. It's never too late to explore something new. So really feel free to reach out to the SNHU Career Services team. I'm going to put more resources in the chat. So anyone that wants a resume review, just to have a conversation about where your career path could go, feel free to connect with our career services team. But I want to give a huge round of applause to Brett and Rihanna for a fabulous conversation, your time, your knowledge shared today. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And we look forward to staying connected in the future. And have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Thank you both.
Enjoy.